Good morning. We're here in Lourdes in France. I call it Lourdes here, and behind me is the grotto where in 1858 a young girl named Bernadette, who was 14 years old, saw apparitions of the Virgin Mary 17 times over the course of several months. And it became one of the most significant miracles that is celebrated and honored by the Catholic Church and many other Christians around the world. So this is a major world pilgrimage site. There are thousands of people here seeking healing. They're bringing candles into light. They're bringing coming to get the water that flows from the spring that Bernadette discovered here on this site. And up above, you can maybe pan up and see the cathedral that sits on top of the site of the grotto. And supposedly the apparition told Bernadette to tell the church authorities to build that cathedral there, and they eventually did. So it's quite a story here, quite an amazing experience of a combination of very sacred experiences of people, in many cases, desperately seeking healing, and also it's quite a commercial place, as you'll see in some of the photos. So what I'm going to do now is show you some slides of photos that we've taken over the last few days, and in a few minutes I'll be back to talk about the miracles of Lourdes. The music you'll hear is the processional music that's sung when they do their daily processions here in the morning and evening.
Avec tous nos frères des pays amis, nos frères italiens, nos frères de langue anglaise, nos frères de Suède, nos frères de Pologne, nos frères d'Espagne et tous les autres, ensemble, nous chantons le Magnificat. Magnificat, magnificat anima mea Dominus. Mon esprit glorifie le Tout-Puissant, et mon âme tressaille d'allégresse.
Well, hello. We're actually re-recording this back in the hotel room because we made the talk out at the site of the grotto, and the wind noise and the background noise sort of drowned out the talk, which, while some of you might appreciate that, we felt we didn't want to go that direction. So I apologize for the drab background, but this way you'll at least be able to hear me. So you just saw a series of slides. Oh, I should probably mention I'm on sabbatical, as you know, so the Razor and I haven't been too close, so that's all that's going on there. No big deal. It may or may not be cleaned up by the time you see me in 3 weeks, but we'll see what happens. So here in Lourdes, you just saw slides, pictures of the town, of the basilica, the grotto, the river. And it's really quite a place. And in walking around here, you know, when we got into town, the first thing I saw was the town, which has about 200 souvenir shops. And the souvenir shops are all related to the miracle. There's statues of you know, everything you can imagine. There's water bottle containers, candles, trinkets, jewelry, all kinds of religious artifacts, the occasional Parisian store with perfume and all that. So it seems incredibly commercial, and it is to that extent. And then you walk over to the grotto, to the basilica, to the sacred site, if you will, and it's very different. Literally hundreds and thousands of people are here right now that are they're seeking healing. They're seeking to be healed of illnesses, to be healed of disabilities, to be healed of diseases, all kinds of things. And you got some flavor of that. I didn't want to take a lot of photos of the folks that were in the wheelchairs. Just, you know, you feel like you're intruding. There are large groups here. Entire parishes come, entire cities and towns from some of the European cities come on pilgrimages at certain time. And this time of the year in May is when the major pilgrimage season occurs here. So, what happened here? You know, the basic story that Bernadette, a 14-year-old girl in 1858, who was very poor, was sent out by her mother to gather firewood with her 2 sisters. And in order to get to the firewood, they had to cross the river. And Bernadette she realized she'd forgotten that, and she had on her only pair of shoes and her only pair of stockings, and she sat down to think about, you know, what am I going to do? Do I take my shoes off? Do I leave them here? Do I get them wet? Whatever. And the 2 sisters went on across the river, so the story goes, to get the wood. And as Bernadette was sitting there, she was by what is called the grotto now, which was known at the time as kind of a scary place, where it's sort of a little cave in the rocks, and could be a little foreboding. It's a short distance from the river. So she turned and saw this apparition of this beautiful woman, and she called the woman Aquia. That was her term for it. And the woman began to talk to her, and basically, you know, began a series of revelations, of visions that occurred 17 times over the next several months. 15 of those, the first 15 were in a row, 15 consecutive days. So Bernadette wasn't going to share what happened. Her sisters came back. They were mad at her for not coming across the river and so forth. And she said, I'm not going to tell them. And on the way home, she told them, and they told her mother. And it sort of snowballed from there. And as she went back every day, there would be people that would go with her. She got into some trouble with the church authorities, with the local police, who, you know, again, would go to when the lady would appear to Bernadette, but they wouldn't see the lady. And a few of the officials believed her, a few didn't. The word got out, as you know, these kinds of things happen. And there were times when there were thousands of people showing up for these visitations. There was one key visitation in the second half where the lady told Bernadette to dig in the ground beneath where she was appearing and to find water. And Bernadette said, there's no water here. Everyone knows there's no water here. But she began to dig, and she sort of got into this. She was in a trance, you might say, in a frenzy, and got covered with dirt and everything. And she got to some mud, but nothing else happened. And she went home, and people that had seen this thought she was insane. So they thought about committing her to an asylum. And the next day she went back, and she was always getting told not to go back, and you can't go back, but she would go back. And the next day there was clear water rising up out of the ground, and that was really the discovery of the spring. And everything about Lourdes here, a lot of it is water. So people come and they get containers, they get the water, they drink it, they bathe in it, they use it for holy water, they do it a lot of things with it. There are baths here. There are spigots where you can go and get water. In fact, we originally had the camera set up on top of a water fount out near the grotto. So, and you saw the water containers for sale in the town. It's illegal to sell the water. That's one of the basic rules here, but it's legal to sell containers to put the water in. So that's what happens. So anyway, the visions continued. Then she went 15 days in a row, and then she went for a while, like a week without seeing, and then it went several months, and went back, and there was the final vision. And at that time was the first time that Bernadette said, I think it's the Virgin Mary, I think it's the Blessed Mother. Up to that, she hadn't thought that. So out of that grew this whole industry, if you will, this whole pilgrimage site that attracts millions of people, 7 or so million people a year that come here. Bernadette sort of lived a quiet life after that. She went into the convent, and she died in her 30s of tuberculosis. In the meantime, the Catholic Church has certified the 17 visions, and about 360 or so healings since 1855 that have occurred here that they have certified. So that's a pretty small percentage when you think thousands of people are here every day, but that's what they have certified. They actually have priests here who evaluate the claims of miracles and decide whether or not it meets the standard, whatever that is. So we would say, what's going on here from a metaphysical perspective? That would be the real question. And I think what's going on here is the same thing that goes on in any place where a healing occurs. It occurs as a result of a change in consciousness, a shift in the realization of self, a shift in what I know or what I can accept as true. If you look at, we've talked about this before at the center, if you look at the New Testament in terms of the Gospels and the healings that are indicated in there, there's a number of healings, and they have a very similar thread where Jesus will arrive on the scene of someone who is ill and will perform a healing. But the way the healing is performed is Jesus usually asks the question, do you believe you can be healed? And the person says yes. You know, and my contention is if they said no, they didn't get in the Bible because the healing didn't happen. And so they said yes. And then Jesus would say, get up and walk, open your eyes and see, whatever it would be, whatever the healing, the cure would be, your faith has saved you. Your faith has saved you. So it's the inner realization of the person. So you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that that person who was experiencing an illness or an infirmity of some kind was under a certain level of consciousness or a certain belief that they could accept. I accept that I'm ill, I accept that I'm blind, I accept that I'm crippled, I accept that I have cancer, I accept that I don't have any money, I accept that life is hard, whatever that would be. And as a result of Jesus speaking a greater truth, something to the effect of, you are healed, you are whole, you are complete, you are abundant, and they heard him say it, then they could believe it for themselves. But just because he said it didn't make it happen. It happened because they believed what he said. So the same thing occurs at our center. If someone goes to see a practitioner, and I encourage you to do that in the 1 Minute Miracles after service, see the practitioner of the day. Have a practitioner that you consult on a regular basis, just like you do a physician. And what the practitioner will do for you is know a greater truth than you are now accepting for yourself. And the reason the practitioner can do that is the practitioner isn't experiencing your pain, isn't experiencing your emotional difficulty. The practitioner can see you more clearly than you can see yourself. And speak the word into the law, which simply says, I affirm for you that all is well. I affirm for you that you are healthy. I affirm for you that you are healed and cured of whatever it is that you want to be healed and cured of. And then what do you do? What is your role? Your role is to simply be willing to accept that truth. You don't have to create the truth. You don't have to make it happen. You have to be willing to have it be true for you. And we usually are, right? There are times when we resist our healing, but there are also times when we can accept it. We just have to be able to expand our understanding and acceptance of how it can happen. So the blind man in the New Testament that can't see can't accept or understand that he could heal himself by speaking the word. He needs to hear someone of a higher authority speak the word. Like we do now with medicine, or we do now with a doctor, or with natural healing or alternative therapies. We use them as a device to extend our belief to a greater idea. And once we can extend our belief to that greater idea and accept it, we can have a healing. So the people here, by and large, is my experience, and I think this is probably the case, their conditioning, as my conditioning was when I was in a more traditional setting than I am now, is I don't have that power. God heals, God does everything, and God will only do it under certain circumstances. So I have to beg and plead, I have to live my life a certain way, I have to listen to what the experts say, and that still may not work, you know? So the people that are healed here, that have that healing, somehow use the experience here, their understanding of Bernadette, their understanding of the Virgin Mary, their understanding of the water or whatever it is, to allow them to expand into a greater idea. All healing works that way. You know, Voltaire once said, the great philosopher Voltaire said, medicine is the art of entertaining the patient while he heals himself. So that's what we're always doing. We're always healing ourselves. There isn't any other way healing can happen. They call medicine a practice because they recognize that no medical procedure, no medical technology works the same in every case. You take an aspirin, I take an aspirin, we may have very different results. Now, if it was just chemistry, we would expect to have the same results. But it's not just chemistry, it's chemistry plus consciousness. And the biggest factor is my consciousness or your consciousness that basically creates a relationship with what I put into my body, whether it's food or whether it's medicine, and determines what that becomes. Here at the conference that we're at, it's called Miracles in Management. It's a bunch of professors that teach management, but they have a spiritual approach to it. One of the professors from South African University was talking about quantum physics, and he was talking about leadership, and he says, you know, physics as we generally understand, Newtonian physics works kind of in medium level stuff, in terms of stuff the size of, furniture and human bodies and things like that. And that's, where Newton's laws work and all that stuff. But then there's a deeper level, a smaller level, submolecular level, where things like ideas and thoughts and things work that don't really have substance to the same degree that the chair you're sitting in does. And ideas and thoughts work at that level. And what we do is we tend to apply the physical laws of a chair to our understanding of thoughts and ideas and how we communicate. And what we have to do is learn to apply these different physical laws, because he says we're operating with different rules, but if we misunderstand that, we tend to apply rules that we do know in terms of the world that's kind of gross in terms of size, and those rules don't work at the deeper level. So for me to say, well, if I have a thought, that thought must have mass and it must do something in my subconscious and move something around, it doesn't work like that. It's all energy and chemistry and things that are happening at a very small level in terms of waves and particles and all that stuff. And what that means is that thoughts and beliefs and emotions operate under different rules. And we know, or Dr. Holmes was so clear and he was so prescient in this understanding. He understood this even though it was very early in the days of quantum physics when he was developing the science of mind philosophy, is that thoughts are things in terms of the way things manifest, the way conditions manifest in our lives, the way your physical health manifests is a result of thoughts becoming beliefs at that quantum level. And networks of belief structures come together to form your expectation of the world. One of the examples the professor gave was when you sit down in a restaurant and look at a menu. He says the menu is really a field of potential, and it could be anything. I mean, the menu could be 50 pages long, and so you're sitting down and looking at the menu, and the menu is full of possibilities. And then you say, I think I'll have Caesar salad and a hamburger. Let's say you're not in the healthy eating group. Okay, the healthy eating group would have a Caesar salad and a vegetable soup. Okay, so we'll go with that. And then the person goes to get it. Well, you've just basically taken that field of potential and collapsed it down into one or two things, and that's what you're going to get. Okay, once you've made your order and the person goes to go get it, that's what you're going to get. The rest of the stuff really doesn't matter what the potential is, because it's not on the table anymore, if you will. Well, we do the same thing with our thoughts. Of all the possibilities, we decide what we will accept as true, and the wave, if you will, collapses down into that. And we may pick something that's very limiting. We may pick something that's actually toxic. So what we've got to do is step back out of that into that realm of primary causation and think a new thought, a series of new thoughts that allows us to go back into the field of potential and select something else. Sometimes you might call the waiter back and say, you know what, I don't think I will have a hamburger. I think I'd rather have the vegetable soup. I want to be healthy. I want to have a healthier meal. And as long as that process isn't too far in, then you can make the change. What's the same within your mind? You have at your disposal a whole field of possibility, and by the choices we make, by the thoughts that we think, we trigger what we're going to take out of that immense field and actualize. So what I want you to do, and what I want me to do, and what I want everyone on the planet to do, including the folks that are here at Lourdes, is I want them to actualize their highest potential. I want them to actualize the best case scenario. I want to actualize health. I want to actualize wealth. I want to actualize opportunities to be compassionate and to express that compassion. Opportunities to be a contributor to life and to actualize that contribution. Opportunities to have wonderful relationships. Opportunities to connect, to do whatever it is that you came here to do. As Gary Simmons says, to be who I came here to be. And sometimes what happens in our earlier conditioning is we only get half the menu. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, our the people we've worked with have been working off a half a menu or less, and they have influenced us to believe that's all there is. And I'm here to say to you that there's probably a whole bunch of pages that you haven't even discovered yet. If you think of yourself as limited in any way, you're operating off of that limited menu. Let's look at the greater possibility. Let's step back and open that field and make better choices so that when we collapse the wave, we collapse in a way that brings us joy, that brings us health, that brings us the opportunities to grow and to do and to be the kind of people that we would choose to be. As I'm on this 6-week sabbatical, I've been doing some writing, I've been exploring. You know, if you've been following on Facebook, you've seen we've been eating wonderful food and having a wonderful time. But at the same time, there's been lots of contemplation. There's been lots of looking at, you know, what's going on here? What is it about the people here that are different than the people where I come from? At this conference, there are people there's people from 5 continents here, and we've been having meals and connections with people from South Africa and from Europe and from Asia and from parts of the United States, people we didn't know, and so forth. And we're really recognizing that there's this commonality of a desire for a spiritual expression. That's what brought these people here. These people that are here at this conference, by and large, teach management at universities, and they're here because they want to bring spirituality into that. It's pretty amazing. And they're all on, you know, they tend to be people, in terms of the ones we've met, they've been around, they've moved around, they've looked at things, they've tried that kind of straight line, linear way of approaching, let me get the bottom line, let me make the profits, let me get rich. And they've found that left something wanting. So now they're open to new ideas and new possibilities, expanding that field of potentiality that they have access to. And I think that's what Lourdes is about. It does it in a specific way, according to a specific belief system. But the people that are coming here are leaving where they live to come for a new possibility. And they may see it as coming from outside themselves. They may see it as some kind of magic or miraculous thing happening. I'm not too concerned about that. What it is can they open themselves up to receive by using the concept here as an extension of their own consciousness. The definition of miracle I've been working with since I got here is a miracle is something new emerging into a field of greater receptivity. And that field may be newly receptive, or it may be simply receptive to something along the same lines that's greater and bigger. But when the receptivity changes, the potentiality rushes in to fill it. So we don't have to drag good out of the universe. The universe is leaning into us. What we have to do is become specifically receptive to the potentialities that we seek. And that's what our teaching is all about. It's about using meditation, using prayer, using affirmative thinking, understanding the law and our psychology, so that we can do this in a consistent, clear, definitive manner. Practical spirituality, if you will. One of the things I find in France is that nobody wants to talk about religion, and very few people want to talk about spirituality. But they're all open to a greater experience of the good in life. So it's about languaging, and it's about how we talk about it, because they've got a lot of reject to the way the church ran things here for a long time. But it's also, there's a tremendous hunger for spiritual realization, not just at this conference, but with people we met in Paris and at dinner, and you know, we would connect with folks at the next table because we like to do that. We like to meet people. So we're all hungry. We're all hungry for our own inner potential. And the truth of the matter is, everything that will feed us, everything that will feed you and feed me is already within us. What you are looking for is looking for you. So it doesn't take a miracle. It takes a greater realization. It takes stepping into a bigger idea. And it's not miraculous, it's what we're designed to do. So what I want you to do is learn to expect the best. Learn to expect a greater idea. Learn to be receptive and open to good without talking yourself out of it. See a practitioner when you can't get clear on an issue. Use the tools. Use the system, the philosophy, the science of mind. Transform your life for the better, and we all are served by that. So that's it for me. I think I've said enough. Again, I'm sorry. We wanted to do a really nice backdrop for you and everything, but, what are you going to do? But we're open to a better idea. So I'll see you in 3 Sundays, and I'm looking forward to being home. We're going to start the new class, this thing called You, on the second Monday in June, and I hope you sign up for that. And again, my best to everyone. I love you. I'm happy to be coming home soon, although I'll be okay for another week here. And take care. Namaste.
Bonjour. I am Jacques, your teacher in Francais. Today we begin with a review from last time. The word for grapefruit juice en français is pamplemousse. Pamplemousse. Say with me, pamplemousse. Très bien. Now, the new word. The word, de mot. Mot means word. Premier mot, voiture. Voiture. Voiture is car. Voiture. Say after me. Voiture. Ah, très bien. Deuxième word, the word for wine. Wine. Vin. Vin. Wine is vin. Say after me. Vin. Andy, I did not hear you. Vin. Très bien. So, that is your French lesson for now. Until next time. A bientôt.
Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche, voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens.